Hey everybody, my name is Aaron Bach. I am the host of Journals Out Loud, the show you're watching right now. On this episode, kind of a sensitive topic for some, we're talking about anxiety. And to help us talk about anxiety, on the panel we have Albania today,
Hello, everybody.
Jilly,
Hi, guys.
Abigail,
Hi.
and Josh.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for looking up, Josh.
Sorry. I had jelly on my arm. It gave me anxiety.
See, but hey, you know what? I'm sure that without being facetious or joking at all, I'm sure that could give people anxiety.
The real.
Yeah, because everyone has different experiences, and we're going to talk about some of yours. These are questions that you wrote in. These mostly come from our blog, askjenny.tumblr.com, JENNIE. Please go write in some questions there. Jenny is there to give you answers, and so are we. If you have any questions on top of that, please send them over to our Twitter, @JournalsOutLoud, and also you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. We read those, we'll respond to them, and we'll feature them on the show. First question. How would I go about being diagnosed for something? I feel like I have anxiety, but I keep thinking that I don't and that I'm just faking it. If I did get a diagnosis, how would I tell my parents and friends? It's hard talking about this stuff to anyone. Interesting. So, first of all, just before we start off, I mean, getting diagnosed, that's a medical thing. I mean, like that's something that you would talk to a medical professional about. And, you know, just before any conversation from then on, step one should probably be your doctor, right? Like that's probably where you want the conversation to start. So I guess first of all, has anyone here experienced getting a diagnosis like this? And if so, are you willing to talk about it?
Yeah, I mean, I dealt with a lot of anxiety when my parents separated. I think I got, like, that was a lot of anxiety. And then in the beginning of this semester, actually in college, I dealt with a lot of anxiety I don't know why I laugh about it. It's weird, but I don't know. People deal with things in weird ways. I just realized that I was starting to smile, and then I thought I should address that. But I went through what I thought was a shooting, but there actually wasn't a shooter in our campus and at USC, and so I had severe PTSD and anxiety, and so the route that I went about, because I knew what that was feeling like, I just went and talked to one of the counselors and one of the therapists there at school, and we were able to kind of work through that so that I could kind of go back into the building and continue my classes and kind of go from there. But I think that, you know, my suggestion is if you feel like you're not feeling right, then that's a good indication that you should kind of seek some help from a counselor, from a therapist, a teacher if you're in high school or school in general. You don't necessarily need to tell all your friends. You don't necessarily need to do all of that. I think that, you know, the best thing to do is just kind of get whatever help is right for you, you know, because sometimes it is medication, other times it's not. It's just being able to kind of talk through it and figure out things. For me, I found great found great relief in yoga and meditation and I was with a friend in, you know, the building at the time, and we were able to kind of carve out some time every couple days and weeks to kind of just talk about it so that we didn't have to talk about it or think about it any other time. And so, you know, I think that's just kind of the best thing to do is figure out what's right for you.
Yeah, I definitely agree with find out what works for you. I think in your question, even your question shows, at least in my opinion, that this person has anxiety because they're saying, I don't know if I'm just faking it. That itself sounds like they're doubting themselves and has anxiety around the fact that they think they have anxiety. And for me, I've never been diagnosed specifically by a doctor. I think that even if you're not diagnosed by a doctor, you can generally tell when you're having a feeling of feeling trapped or just a general uncomfortability. And for me, that usually happens when I'm put on the spot or if I'm at work and I didn't do something right, or just certain aspects in which make you uncomfortable. Anyone experiences anxiety, and I think that you don't necessarily have to get diagnosed or have that label. If you do, talking about with your parents shouldn't be that difficult because you're under the age and they'll be the ones who have to take you to that doctor for the most part. So I think definitely if you want to go that route, let them know. Otherwise, yeah, I think you can, safe to say that you can probably say you're having some sort of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to remember, especially in someone who is in this position, right, where you are doubting yourself, that is like a very, very common side effect of having anxiety. Is
Yeah.
that self-doubt? Is that wondering of, is this real or am I faking it?
Oh.
I mean,
You need that validation.
Yeah.
That
sometimes.
just it's
right.
hard.
And here's the thing, though. Like, I'll just say right off the bat, like, if you feel like you have anxiety, then you're not faking it, because otherwise you wouldn't feel it. Like,
That's what it
if,
is.
Yeah.
if you were faking it, then it would literally be you lying, which
Yeah.
you're not. You wrote to us about this, which pretty
Yeah.
clearly indicates that you're not lying.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that you shouldn't seek that validation, and that sometimes is what a diagnosis is. It's confirmation of what you feel, and I don't think everyone needs that, but if you feel you do, then that's okay, and that's what therapists are, at least in part, there for.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next part of this is getting a family member involved, or maybe the whole family, which is a whole other level of trickiness, but it does seem like this person maybe isn't necessarily prepared to go to a doctor on their own. Maybe they're not old enough. So I guess, does anyone have experience talking to family or close friends about any kind of mental issue that you're having at the time? Or because even if you don't, there's still topics we can get to. I'm just curious if we have any.
I suffered from anxiety, and it's something that it was like crippling me for months. And it happened because I grew up in Miami. Then I went to Bali by myself. So I feel like that's the first time I ever experienced like severe anxiety. I was completely alone on, the other side of the world. Time difference, culture shock, everything added onto that. And I'm very adventurous. So to me, it caught me by surprise that I was even feeling this. So that's the first time I ever mentioned to my parents, like, I'm so anxious. Then I moved to New York. Then I moved to LA. So I think for me, it was like all the moving and just being alone and not having to figure out everything from scratch gave me a lot of anxiety. And I remember thinking, is this ever going to go away? I didn't want to go to a doctor because I didn't want to get diagnosed. I didn't want to be dependent on medication. So I held it through. But I think that talking to people, especially my parents, really helped. Like, I always kept them on the loop. And it went away. Like, eventually it went away. I just think it was like a really hard time in my life. Like, a lot of things going on, a lot of new stuff. And I think communication is key, just like the truck. I just think talking to your parents, for me, is what helped me, and my sister too. Just like someone that you really trust, let them be there for you. Open up.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think like if you're gonna talk to somebody, have it be somebody that you trust. At the end of the day, I think that you don't necessarily need to like seek the diagnosis unless you want that validation, like Aaron was saying. And it at some point in everyone's life, they experience anxiety. I feel like I can say that with confidence, even if they've never been diagnosed, or if it's just one moment, one day, 1 minute for their entire life, they've had it at least once. So it's find someone who can relate to you as well, or maybe what you're specifically having anxiety over, and then go from there. I think that will definitely help. There's also a lot of techniques to help deal with it too, like Jolie said, yoga, meditation,
breathing exercise.
Breathing.
When I'm like in front of a group of like a room, I always like they'd say if you like tap the table at the same like pace you want your heart rate to be, it will slow it down. Like do breathing exercise. There's tons of things you can do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I will say, of course, that on top of situational anxiety and life experience anxiety, there's also just generalized anxiety, which is something that many people suffer from. I definitely know people who suffer from it. That's kind of like maybe more like what you're going through right now, it sounds like, where maybe it's not something in your life that's happening to you. Maybe it's not an experience you just had. Maybe it's just something that is a part of you right now. And maybe it's something you've been dealing with for a while. And it's something that you're kind of beginning to be more aware of, which I think that is what's happening. And I think that's a great opportunity for you to get maybe the peace that you're looking for. Maybe it is through yoga. Maybe it is through therapy. Maybe it's through medication. Maybe it's through exercise. There's so many different ways, and they're not even exclusive. You can combine all of these or just some of them. I think that what's going to help you the most, though, is seeking help, seeking contact, making sure that you're not alone in this, making sure that your family knows, and also probably in this case that you speak to at least some kind of medical professional. I think that you can find more peace than you have right now, and it starts with talking about it, which you have with us. You've taken that first step, so hopefully you've been encouraged here to take the next step. If you have any other points or questions, we're always here to help you out. We're always here to listen. Please keep us updated if you can. And now let's hit on that next question. Thank you all, by the way. How do you deal with horrendous anxiety? I'd rather not take medication for it, but sometimes I need a quick fix in the moment, and even things that cheer me up sometimes make me anxious. This kind of hits on a little bit of what we were talking about, like kind of like the methods, the practices.
We should go down the line and like see like
Yeah.
what each person does.
I love that idea. So let's start with you because you volunteered.
High anxiety.
Yep.
It's here. So yeah, no, I listen to music definitely. Music is
Mhm.
my release and my like go-to. I'm always on Spotify, always on Apple Music, always downloading something new, looking at whatever's coming out on Fridays because that's the day it comes out. Like always just music. But I
New Music
do
Friday.
situational anxiety. There's a lot of like breathing, heavy breathing, and like slowly releasing it through the nose, and also like the tap thing I mentioned earlier. There's a lot of cool techniques you can do to like lower your heart rate, lower your breathing, and anxiety like that. So
Cool.
I really relate to this question because I have really bad anxiety and I don't want to take medication for it. And something that I found recently actually was I've been really into like coloring and stuff.
Oh, I've heard about this.
And I really got into just like last week calligraphy. And like learning calligraphy, and it just keeps my mind like stimulated, and it just kind of clears my mind, and I don't have to think about much. And I literally did calligraphy for like 8 hours the other day. I was just like in the zone. So like coloring and things like that. And I also like to volunteer and like go like do something that like, you know, makes me happy or that I like. So like at the animal shelter, I go play with puppies, you know, like to lower, you know, some anxiety. Animals are great for that. So that's what I do.
Like, and maybe it kind of takes you out of your problems and help lets you help other people with theirs.
Exactly.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
I agree. The puppies.
Yeah.
Yes. I have a friend in college who has a dog. So I call him and I say, I need to see your dog right now.
Yeah, it's so real.
So I do that. I will sometimes call certain of my friends and say, I'm having a really rough day. Can we hang out? Because I'm somebody who sometimes just needs to be around people. I will write or journal. I will, yoga obviously has become a big part of my life. Meditation, or writing down things or thinking about things that I'm grateful for in times when I feel really upset. I'm trying to just like change my mindset a little bit. And also knowing that like, yeah, I feel really bad in this moment and it's really anxious, but I also know that I felt really anxious before and come out of it.
For me, I've had the situational anxiety just when I've been moving a lot. And what's helped me always is FaceTime. I'm a big sucker for
Yes.
FaceTime. Like I will call my mom or dad or my best friend Melissa. Shout out to her. She like deals with all my anxiety. But I talk it through. Like I feel very comfortable when I have somebody on the other side telling me like it's gonna be okay, like because I'm usually far and that's why I'm having that anxiety. So just like hearing a familiar voice to me helps me. And I also have a puppy, Sugar, and she she helps me
I
a
saw
lot.
your
But
Instagram.
yeah,
Therapy
she's
dogs are
my
real, guys.
daughter.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, just for me, communicating, talking, and also something that might help is like removing yourself from a specific situation. Like if you're in a place that's giving you anxiety, like leave, go somewhere else, change atmosphere.
I like that. Thank you all for sharing all that with us. I think that was really helpful for a lot of people who maybe didn't have these resources before, and also for telling your stories, which were very personal and I think probably often difficult to talk about. So I really appreciate that, and I'm sure that our viewers do too. Thank you all so much. If you're looking for my personal tip, when I think during the periods of worst anxiety, I don't know what it is, but I'll typically, because there's so many of them, I'll buy an Assassin's Creed game and just play it through 100% all the way through, like just from beginning to end nonstop. And that works really well for me. So hope maybe it'll work well for you too. Either way, thank you so much for writing in. And I know this is a difficult subject, so I think you did a great thing writing in the first place. Proud of you. We are always here to take your questions. AskJenny.tumblr.com. Hit us up on Twitter, Journals Out Loud. And like I said, we're always watching the comments. So give us questions there. Give us comments. Happy to see your feedback. Happy to answer your questions. And we will see you next time.